I guess. Um, I logged in this morning to about 15 reports on my videos, so I felt it was probably a good idea to do a live at that point anyways. So I am here. I figured we'd kind of take it back to the subject that we tend to talk about typically anyways in here, which is paleoanthropology. Thank you, thank you. I haven't been on at all. I have chronic disabilities. I'm a disabled war vet, and sometimes it just gets too much, and I haven't been able to sit upright. I don't know how long I'm going to be able to last today actually sitting upright, but I haven't been able to sit upright, and I haven't been able to really even make it across my house lately. And yeah, somebody's going through and mass reporting all of my videos to try and get me banned, of course, because that's how TikTok goes. The account will be set to private for the most part for a while. I took it off of private to be able to do the live video because it doesn't seem to work as well doing the live video on private. And so I did take it off for the live video, but hello, beautiful. I am in the midst of being mass reported, so we'll see how long it stays up, actually. I'll be watching as we're live to make sure that I'm not getting mass reported while we are live. Um, so um, I have been doing a couple of different things while I've been laid up. And I actually, for Christmas this year, my partner got me a tablet. And so I have a couple of different types of videos that I'm working on to kind of give a little bit more of the ability to see things better, right? So that people can actually visualize what I'm talking about in certain cases. Um, but it might be a little while because I'm just trying to figure out how to do it. I'm not a very TikTok savvy person, or a video savvy person. And so it'll take me a little while I'm working on it. Um, we seem to be on a shadow ban too, as we only have like 7 people in here. This is probably because of the fact that I am getting mass reported. It does work like that, unfortunately. Um, so as much as you can like and share the live would be helpful. But with the um, new videos I'm working on, I'm going to be doing a couple of things that will hopefully give us some visual aids in learning certain things and make it a little bit easier to understand certain things, is what I'm kind of looking to do. Um, I wanted to make sure that I came in because of the fact that if I'm being mass reported, I want to make sure that the mass reports uh, are kind of counteracted, right? That just because they're mass reporting me does not mean that they can actually get away with it. I did take it off private for this, but I'll be putting it back on private as soon as I'm out of the live. Um, and then, so what that means with it is it means that if you tag people in my videos or stuff like that, that they have to follow me and I have to approve their follow for them to be able to see them, just so you guys are aware. I just want to make sure that everybody's aware of everything. Um, and like I said, I don't know how long I'll be on today. I am in a lot of pain and I'm not functioning as well as I would like to. And because of that, it makes it a little bit harder for me to speak and to function. So that's why I chose Homo erectus as well, because it makes it a little bit easier. It's something that I totally know. Thank you, Katie. I appreciate that. Um, so with all of that said, and if we've only got like 8 people in here, I'm going to assume that most of the people in here are actually people who have been around for a hot minute, and people who are friends and who got the video. So instead of talking about something that everybody else has heard, or that everybody has some correlation with or some understanding of, because you could have been around for a while and so you've heard it. Um, I'm going to go ahead and just open it up to any questions people have, any thought processes they have that they're trying to process through with any paleoanthropology or anything like that. Hello, lovely. Not really, but I'm getting mass reported, so I figured coming in and doing a live was probably one of the better ways to counteract the mass reporting. Um, so I figured I'd try and be in for a little bit. I thought it was sleepy head for a second. I was like, "Do I look sleepy?" And then I realized that she was talking to you and went, "Never mind. It's not me looking sleepy." Um, so, uh, since it is such a small group and it is such a most likely people that have a lot of knowledge or have heard and we've talked about this before and they know what we're talking about, I do want to just go ahead and leave it kind of conversational and kind of questioning today. If people want to come up, they can come up, and just kind of keep it a little bit low key. Like I said, I'm not sure how long I'll be able to be around today just because of my body, but I will do my best to be around for a little while, and to keep us going. I have new glasses. They're weirding me out on the screen, and I can see that they're like crooked. Like, here's my head straight, and the glasses are like crooked, right? And they're bifocals. I don't know if you can see this because I have gotten old. And so, like, I'm really trying to relearn how to see with my glasses. Thank you. I really like them. They're really cute. They just look, I've had black glasses for so long, or these, because I got two pairs the last time I got glasses outside of this time. And so I've had these or my black glasses for so long. And those are really cool, but I needed something bigger for the bifocal, especially with the first bifocals and having them lined and stuff like that. Um, but they're a little bit big, and so I don't mind. I like glasses. I think they look cute on me, but they're still different. And then it's really for me, it's the getting used to. First of all, I think that they're a little bit crooked on my face because my face is a little bit crooked, like everybody's face is a little bit crooked. And I haven't gotten them set right yet. And now I have to see myself wearing them because I'm looking at a video of myself and I haven't had to see myself wearing them this whole time. Um, and it's the bifocal part of it is a little bit confusing for my eyes, and I'm trying to learn the bifocal part and really kind of get there with the bifocal part. Um, so I will be easily distracted today. I just want you to all know that today is going to be an easy distraction, and today is going to be hit and miss on the educational content. uh, so just because of the fact that my brain only works so well when I'm having problems. I've been working on a lot of graphics and a lot of artwork, and so I'm working on trying to get some stuff up. And then I've been working on. I know I love those interchangeable frame ones. I wouldn't mind a pair of those. Um, I've also been working on the stuff that I'm writing. The new tablet gives me the ability to write anywhere, which I'm really enjoying. And I'm also been working on the um, the study for my grave that I'm studying, and so I've been working on some of that as well. So I do have some stuff in the works, and do have some stuff I've been putting effort in. For those who like to get into Second Life, I started going back into Second Life again, and I'm friended a couple of people who had sent me friend requests. And I will be hopefully like I want to set up almost like a school environment in there. So there's like a classroom environment in there that people can attend on a free basis. Um, so I'm going to be working on that as well and getting that set up so that it's a little bit more cross-platform, not just YouTube and this, but in a space where you guys can actually interact and actually get to know each other and actually have those different abilities to know each other and different abilities to interact. Also, I think that a classroom setting and something like Second Life will make it easier for a classroom setting, right? Because people can sit and actually ask questions and really, come in and learn on a different level. I've always been a back and forth person with Second Life. I spend a lot of time in it, and then I spend a lot of time out of it, and they have the new Animesh Subi babies, and my sister and I have been playing with the new Animesh Subi babies. And so that is kind of the reason that I was like, okay, I'll go in and play because I don't get a lot of opportunity to play with my sister. So, oh, why'd you quit, Mia? What'd they do? I mean, It's not like they're not all doing something wanky these days anyways. Hi, Jeremy. Good. Oh, I'm glad. So when do you start the new job? That makes me happy. That's a good step forward. Okay, cool. So right after Christmas. Nice, nice. That'll be good. I'm glad to hear that. Fuck, we've all got my partner is actually looking right now because most places just don't fucking you're not even getting a cost of living raise in most places anymore. Like they don't even do a cost of living raise in most places anymore. It's become pretty ridiculous. So, like last year, I think the cost of living raise for Social Security and VA benefits was like 6, 7%, maybe 8%. And the raises that everybody around me got was 3%. And it's like you're not even getting a cost of living, right? Nice. That's an awesome idea. That's one thing that I really want to do that we're working towards is actually getting an RV. That's a great thing, Mia. That will make it a lot nicer. Making New York money and or California money and not living in New York or California is really a great idea. I mean, remote work makes that a lot easier, right? Because that New York money, that California money, you make a lot better money in those cities just because of the cost of living being so high in those cities. And so they give a higher wage in those cities. So if you can get that wage and not be living in that nasty space, then it's going to be a really great idea. We're working on that RV idea. I'm hoping within the next 2 years or so that we end up with an RV that we can, just keep the RV. I'd rather do that. We wanna buy, some land for us and all the kids, but, that's something that we're working at. That's like a 5-year goal is our plan on the land. It's one of those things where we buy with the kids put the down, and then we do the loan and carry the loan. But it gives us the ability for us and the kids to have a community property, which is what we're kind of working on with the daughters is some community property. And so I'm hoping to get there, and the RV will be a good step to that. But you can get into an RV and be living in an RV. You can fucking rent a KOA space for $300 a month and fucking, excuse me, that's my chair. Hey, his chair is not scratch post. Um, and it's cheaper. It's so much cheaper, right? It's going to be like I can't really do it with the cats and the dog right now. But that is the plan is to get a space where we just have an RV and we can actually because like for me I have 10 free days a month for my VA in camping areas. So like I can use any of the state camping areas for 10 days a month for free. So we could camp for 10 days a month in any of the camping spaces and then pay for the rest of it. So it ended up being a lot cheaper in the long run until we get to the point where we're actually buying the land and setting up and then having an RV because I've my parents have bought raw land and built a house so many times in my lifetime that I've seen this happen, right? So and an RV is one of the better ways to live on raw land where you're building a house. I've watched we lived in a teepee when I was little while they were building the house from like the time I was 5 to the time I was 7. We lived in a teepee and we spent a couple winters in a bus until the house was built. Like the first winter we wintered in the teepee and that was pretty horrific. And then second winter we wintered in the bus and that was a little bit more decent. And then the third winter, um, we built a house, but it started to snow right before the third winter came along. And well, I mean, obviously that's the winter, but it started to snow in October and they were still out building the house. And that was like really vicious in the teepee. So um, I would much rather be in an RV or in a bus than live in a teepee through a winter. So I think that having an RV and using that to build on raw land is probably the best way to go for me. I want to get myself a little tiny house that has plans. I have Hobbit Hole plans. I went to Hobbit Hole, little tiny house, Hobbit Hole, communal space for all chillins, Hobbit Hole for the mamas. And then I want like communal space for all the kids, like an outdoor kitcheny area. And I want to have like little hobbit holes over off the outdoor kitchening area so that all the kids who aren't living there can come and visit and have their own little hobbit hovel to live in when they're visiting. And then I want to have like a studio where we can do all of our witchy stuff and all of our artsy stuff and all of our creative stuff. I can totally understand that. I didn't know you were in Switzerland. Cob houses are pretty cool. Straw bale houses are really cool too. I've looked at those. Have you seen the ones that they're doing where they do like pop bottles and stuff like that, plastic reclamations, earth ships kind of things? I've always been into those kind of things. I've had plans and designs and house designs for so long. Um, I would rather do stuff that is sustainable and more less concrete, less permanent, like less 1,000 years from now, it's still going to be there and more it'll blend back into the earth in the end. And I like things like cob and straw bale houses and stuff like that for that. Of course, plastic bottles biodegrade so long anyways. It takes so long to biodegrade anyways that those are one of those things that's probably still going to be here anyways. But I love the sustainable thought process. Living in a city and living in a house in the city or an apartment in the city is really exhausting. I think that I get I don't even know what the word is. Actually, Sleepy has a word that is the longing for what could have been, or the longing for the what was, or something like that. And I think that that's kind of what it is. It's like this longing for the green, this longing for the space, this longing for the connection that I've had, that I know, that and being so disconnected makes it just so hard to interact or to function, because my connection's always been more natural than it is. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love connection with other people and I love other people, but my connection's always been very much to the land. And so being disconnected from it makes everything a lot harder. It makes everything a lot harder. And I have those days where like I can remember these moments that I can't even describe what the feeling of them was when I was a child, like walking through green spaces. I remember this one time, like walking down this road in this town that I had never been in before and I've never been in since. But it was like my parents' friends were there and we were visiting, and there was like this green hedge, but it wasn't really a hedge. And it was like that, those concrete roads that are those old roads. They're like kind of like bitumen, but they're kind of not, and they're kind of thin and they're kind of narrow, and it was along the side of one of those roads, and like this overhang of just green masses of masses. Yes, because it's specific for Cymru, for what could have been in Cymru. And I know that one, but it's that same kind of feeling, that longing for, right? But it is specific. That is specific for it. I know that there's no words that are specific for that in any other language, right? Like it doesn't translate well. You have to like go with it. Oh, that's awesome, R2D2. I need doggy doorbells. Have a great one. Enjoy your walk. Enjoy the puppy. Um, so I'm like, uh, I can remember that. And there's like this feeling that goes along with this feeling of like contentment and peace that goes along with it. And I'm like, "Ah, I need that feeling again." And it feels to me like that feeling comes when there's, yes, overwhelming sense of longing and homesickness for our Cymru that could have been or should have been. And that's it. And of course, I mean that's just for that. And I wouldn't want to dishonor or I do like the concept, right? And I think it is a concept that should be translated differently, right? That should be translated into different thought processes, right? The longing for the globe that should have been, the longing for the world that should have been, the longing for the who we were instead of the who we are. And I think for me, like I can remember, so I went into a treatment center for drugs and alcohol when I was 15, and I did it because I was living on the streets and I had nowhere else to go. And my sister, my best friend, to this day, in fact, it is her little sister who is another one of my best friends, who is one of the siblings that I lost to MMIW in 2021. Um, she was in a treatment center, and so I went because she was there, and I was like three hots in a cot, and I can get off the streets. I was homeless. I was 15. And so I went in and, they did a drug and alcohol evaluation with me. And I was, I came out not an alcoholic. So they redid it and told me that I was an alcoholic. And so then I had to go through all of these different things. And I can remember writing like and I don't even remember what the key was that I was supposed to be writing about, right? But I just remember writing this deep desire that I had always had to not live in a space that had roads and cities, and like it was this I've always looked across the land when you're driving down the road and gone, what was it like before? What was it like before all of these things were, you know, what was it like before we trashed everything? What was it like before we created this issue? What was it like before, we had these boxes, ticky-tacky boxes that we live in, right? And I remember being like 15 years old and writing like 5 or 6 pages of this longing, this deep, deep longing for who we were and who we are, and this reconnect to who we are as a people, and who we are as a species, and who we are. And this, just deep desire to that actually makes sense, Holly. I have not seen that, but that actually makes sense. I'm knocking things over. Is that in here, or is that like on YouTube or something? Leaky foundation. Like Leaky, like the archaeologist? Come on. What are you doing? There we go. YouTube. Okay, I'll look it up. And is it Leaky Foundation, or is it I'm pulling it up right now because that's something I've got to look at. So it's just one of those. I've always been there. Like I've always gone, what is it that we're missing? So it is Leaky Foundation. Okay. Leaky Foundation on I can't find it. Oh, it's not seeing in here. Could you possibly send it to me? Yeah, archaeology supports much more of a lack of gender roles. Um, Leaky Foundation. Oh, I can't find it. I'll keep an eye out for it. It doesn't make sense for there to be binary. So binary gender roles, this idea that because of your biological organs dictates what you're good at and what you're bad at, or what you amazing, amazing. Thank you so much. The idea that you are in the YouTube stream that we've got going right now. I hate stuff like this. I can't figure out technology. I'm so bad at this, right? Um, but the idea that what you do is based on what body parts you have instead of based on what you're good at is always been really weird to me. Like, and the idea that society dictates what those with a penis like to do, or what those with a vagina like to do, right? Like the idea that, it's all about whether or not you have a penis or a vagina as to whether or not you're smart, like all of those thought processes to me have never really sat well along with the rest of it, right? But the idea that, our The idea that I should conform and disregard my capabilities based on what other people say I should be doing, right? Huh. Why is it? It's not showing up in the chat. I don't know why. Don't worry about it too much, though. We'll find it. So we don't see a lot of gender binary in the archaeological record at all, and we actually see a lot more lack of gender binary, right? A lack of that doesn't mean that there aren't cultures that have roles, right? There are absolutely many cultures out there who have gender roles. Most of them are not a binary gender, though, and most don't seem to look at the gender roles as biological sex roles, right? They look at them as a chosen gender role, right? So awesome. Thank you, Paul. I appreciate that. Yeah, she was trying to do it in YouTube because on YouTube it tends to work better, but I don't know why it's not working on YouTube. Thank you, Paul. I appreciate that. I hadn't heard about it. I would definitely want to look in it. I've been reading on the Burqa graves for like the last week. That's been the entire focus of my study for the last week has been the Burqa graves and BJ581, of course, which is the grave that I work on. And so my entire focus has been reading articles on that. But I love getting the newer thought processes. I love not the newer thought processes, but like I love the so often I laugh because things have come up that it's like um I've thought of that. Like when the southern boat route to Abiyala came out, and there was this conversation that because of the Denisovan DNA, interliland indigenous people and Abiyalan indigenous people, the likelihood of a southern boat route was present because of the fact that the percentage of the DNA and because of the fact that DNA is only found in the southern part of Eastern Eurasia, right? And so, because it's only found in the southern part of Eastern Eurasia, it negates this idea that they are going up to the north and crossing across the north, right? So when archaeologists start looking into this southern boat route idea, I'm sitting here going, thank God, like we've known this for decades. I'm so glad you're finally looking at this, right? Um, so when I see a lot of things coming across, and there's actually been a few things that have come across in the last week or so that I've looked, because I've always got that. My archaeology is always in my feed. It's everything that comes across my feed, and so there's been a few things that have come across, and I've been like, ha, we knew, I knew. Glad you're finally catching up. So yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a huge thing too, right? When we decide that men must need more caloric intake, so they're going to eat more than women are going to eat, and it's like, I mean, I've known women in my life that are stronger than most men I know, right? It's on average. People don't grasp averages. People, I don't know, like the idea of what an average is third grade, right? We learned that shit in third grade, didn't we? I mean, I think it was third grade and people still can't seem to grasp that average doesn't mean most or overall. Absolutely. I'm totally up for people coming up today. Um, so I'm not carrying the whole weight today. Makes it a little makes it a little easier. Hello, lovely. Huh. Working on it. It's okay. I'm upright. Oh,
sexual dimorphism in current humans is roughly about 15%. Oh, sorry, I've got a dog. So sexual dimorphism, for anybody who doesn't know, is basically any way in which males and females of a certain species are different in every way except to do with like sexual reproduction and the capability to reproduce, that kind of thing. So basically, if you've got a penis or vagina, that's not relevant to the conversation. The biggest kind of like arguments to do with like men being in charge is they're bigger, they're stronger. Well, in current human beings, in current comparisons, that's about 15%. Oh, hello.
Ha ha ha. Sorry, I'll de-Hispanic. Give me that look. Okay, okay, okay.
But if you actually look back into like 10,000 years ago, that sexual dimorphism is less. I don't know exactly how less, but you can kind of explain that because if you look at patriarchy, which is about who holds all the power and who holds all the resources, in modern day society that might be money, but in like patriarchy in Mesopotamia or whatever it is, 6,000, 7,000 years ago, the biggest resource would have been like food and things like that. And if you're going through a shortage in food and you're living in a society that favors men, men are going to be getting more nutrition than females. And then what happens is, first and foremost, the biggest, like tallest and biggest women, their systems are going to shut down quicker. The first systems to go is your fertility. So those tall genes are not going to go into the gene cycle for the next generation. And the remainder, they learn to adapt and live on less. So we became shorter and we became less muscle dense because of patriarchy.
I think I saw an article recently that probably is what sent you down that hole. But that's amazing. And I saw something that was talking about like the change in sexual diaphorism in humans a few thousand years ago that had to do with society as much as it had to do with food. And that makes total fucking sense to me. And
Like evolution, if it was evolution itself, it would affect the whole species, but it didn't. It just affected one particular sex within that species,
yeah,
which therefore you put it down to an adaptation. And you start seeing this, I think, in the archaeological record around about 5,000 years ago.
that was it. Yeah.
And you trace that back with the, what is it, 100 generations to make permanent adaptations. And that takes it back to basically smack bang on the beginning of patriarchy.
Yeah.
You see it in modern day society with adaptations in, say, the descendants of people who went through the potato famine. Their genes have changed and mutated to make it easier for their descendants to survive, which basically means that they can hold weight a lot more than their ancestors because they said this is the world we're living in. We're going to need to be able to hold on to the nutrition, whatever nutrition we can actually get. So all those types of things, yeah, I just found it really, really interesting.
I think it's really interesting. I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, when we look at Neanderthals and we see that the sexual diaphorism in Neanderthals is actually the women were larger than the men, right? It's opposite than it is within us now. We don't see a lot of sexual diaphorism in paleoanthropology that I've seen. Prior to 30, 40,000 years ago within Homo sapien, I don't see a lot of sexual diaphorism. And so I had seen that article and it makes a lot of sense that, it is that shift. And like you were saying, it's that 100 generations to make something permanent. That's 2,500 years currently, right? So, doubling down on it because that's what we've been doing makes it even more so. I think that that has a lot of weight in the thought process and in the idea, and I think that it makes a lot more sense than, I mean, anything else really. I mean, what is it that, we're seeing and doing that would, negate or, sorry, I'm doing something with my camera and it got weird on me and it's not working the way I want it to. What is it that would be doing that would make it different with sorry, YouTube, I don't know why it's doing that. Maybe I don't. Anyways, there's no reason, right? There's no rhyme or reason for men to be taller on average other than something we've created, right? There's no rhyme or reason for that other than something we've created. There's nothing in our genetics prior that shows this need to, I mean, what does it do benefit us to be smaller as women, right? What does it benefit us to, and
Yes, how it's giving birth and all these types of things. So it's not beneficial, and evolutions generally are beneficial to the species, and all those things. But it answers a lot of questions. So, for instance, obviously with modern science, we find it really easy to sex skeletons. But if you take away genetic ability to do that, and it answers the question of why it's so damn difficult to sex ancient skeletons more so than modern skeletons, because that dimorphism or whatever it's called was less. And part of the reason I fell into this is because of my major interest in nutrition and nutritional needs,
yeah,
and the idea that in modern day society, men and women generally do need different nutritional needs because of their body mass sizes and things like that. But it begs to differ that if we were so similar back then, we wouldn't have needed as different a diet.
that's real. And I mean, when we look at the history, not the history, but the prehistory of our species and the activities within the prehistory of our species, we see that there wasn't a division of labor based on sex, right? And so if there's not a division of labor based on sex in our pre-time, then it absolutely is something that, why would men be taller if they're not doing all the heavier lifting at that point of time? Like, why would they be like that? And so to see that this stuff actually plays out because of societal structure and because of societal influence is a really important thing, I think, especially when we're looking at how to adapt and change ourselves to do better, like to survive as a species. And how, when we're looking at how uh, things have affected us, right? And so when we're looking at those different things, understanding how societal changes have really affected every part of us is really a hugely important thing, I think. And that's one of the things that I really love about anthropology and archaeology right now is that there is so much activity in this uh trying to understand new things, trying to think, trying to give a new understanding of what's going on, like trying to really dig into the why. For so long, I think that we've been taught to accept it just is. It is what it is. This just is. And it's always like that. It's always been like that. And
Bullshit.
it is. It's bullshit. And I remember probably 10 years ago going, we couldn't have always been like this. This can't I mean, I knew that we weren't always like this, right? So if we couldn't have always been this, what were we before? And I knew kind of what we were before going back to like 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. So what were we before that, right? And we have this concept within our space and our thought process as a globe. It seems we have this concept that this is who we've always been, and it's not until we start to dig deeper that we can see that everything we deal with is something somebody made up for
It's one of
us,
the
you know?
foundational roots of what patriarchy uses to sustain itself when it's always been this way.
Yeah.
But when you start breaking that down, that argument really does fall flat on its face. I mean, the whole concept, you've talked about this before, about men being stronger than women anyway. Realistically, they're stronger in general on average in one kind of way. In most other ways, women outstrip men in strength,
Yeah.
lower body strength, in mental strength, pain threshold, all that kind of stuff. So to
Endurance.
say
Yeah.
that men are stronger than women just as a flat out statement, therefore patriarchy, well, that's bullshit as well.
Yeah. Well, and it leads into so many other things that are so disingenuous, even on the surface, even when you look at it, right? When you look at it on the surface, you can look at things and go, if we're the same species, how is one sex given more intelligence than another sex, right? Like, if we're the same species, why would one biological, because how am I supposed to pass on intelligence to a male child if I don't have intelligence in my female body, right? Like, how am I supposed to pass these on to, if I don't have the capacity for them, if I don't have the genetics for them, right? And so when we look at all of those things and decide that, a biological sex, it's like deciding that race, decrease those things, and of course, I'm not equating sexism to racism. Racism and sexism are both different methods of othering. yet when you look at it, the same
Yes.
concept is there. Is that what I see dictates who you are, and because what I see dictates who you are, you can't be anything but what I've dictated you to be, and it's
Of
pretty.
course, I mean, birds need the worst classifiers anyway. I mean, come on, you even if you look at basic things like breaking down animals into mammals and birds and all those kinds of things, we broke it down on based on what we saw and different characteristics. Well, where the hell does a bloody duck-billed platypus fit into all that? Do you know what I mean?
That's real. Well, and I think they can't even figure out. Like, I think they've designated the duck-billed platypus as a mammal because it bears live young. But I think that that's the only way that they were
Well,
able
it
to
lays
class.
eggs.
Yeah.
It lays eggs.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Why did they dig? Oh, I can't remember. Yeah, no, that one's well,
Eggs that look remarkably like lizard eggs, and it's venomous.
yeah, and it's venomous, right? And so is it not a lizard, right? Like
And it makes milk. Yes, it makes milk.
that was it. It was the milk. It was the milk that was why they dictate because they nurse, and anything that nurses its young is considered to be a mammal. That's what it is because, and that's the only reason that the duck-billed platypus is considered to be a mammal, but every other thing underneath the duck-billed
Interesting as
platypus
well.
doesn't work.
This was made up of a bunch of rules that all have exceptions. It's all constructed in certain ways.
Well, and that's why the taxonomy doesn't work so much anymore, right? Like that's why so many different things are being changed within the scientific fields because of the fact that all of these rules that were put in place are like not not that doesn't work, you know. Um well, and I think we have this idea that once something becomes a fact, it's a fact forever. And I remember getting in an argument with husband number 2 about this because he was so mad that I just wasn't accepting his facts as facts. And I was like, well, they're the facts for right now, but that doesn't mean that that's the fact tomorrow. Well, yes, it is. It's a fact forever. And I'm like, that,
And then you get people like me that can understand that something is considered fact, but I like to kind of prove that fact to myself before I accept that it's fact.
well, and that's scientific. That's you being a scientist. That is why science is innate in all of us, right? When I talk about like creativity being so innate in us and that curiosity, that's science. That's this works for you, but now I have to test it out so it works for me. Now I have to figure out how it works better for me. Now I have to
The same
adjust it so it
applies
works
to
better.
mathematics as well for me. Mathematics used to be the big one. I mean, I remember sitting in high school and being told about Pythagoras theorem, and it just is, and I'm like, but why? And I sat there and I actually kind of really confused my maths teacher because I sit and worked out the whole process myself.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I
yeah,
was always like that. Like I remember, why do we call it blue? Well, because the blue is the word for it. Yeah, but why?
why?
Why did we choose that word? Why did we choose the word tree? I remember that specific question. Why did we choose the word tree? What does tree mean? Why did we choose that word? Why did we choose that? And even like the
I bet you
Pythagorean
both
theorem,
families
we
now
realized
get them right.
they found a tablet. Did you see the thing where they found a tablet? Pythagoras's theory is 2,000 years before Pythagoras.
No, I didn't.
Yes, I'll find it and I'll send it to you. No, they found
Yeah.
something where they found Pythagorean theorem in tablets that are like ancient I want to say Qumri because ancient cuneiform. So they found Pythagorean's theorem in cuneiform tablets. Pythagorean's theorem predates Pythagoras.
Wow.
Like we have this
I mean,
concept
I
that
did read about young black girls. I think there was two of them that actually found a different way to do Pythagoras theorem or a different way to prove it.
that's
And I
cool.
think they're only like 15.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Incredible.
I had not seen that.
About that. Yeah, I'll try and find that one and send it to you.
Yeah, that's
That's
awesome.
that. Yeah, can you stop kicking me, please? I had
I
a
think
friend
that the
called
Loch Ness monster is a plesiosaur. I absolutely agree with that one. I am. Actually, I have a mini dachshund, and when my mini dachshund was little and he was a puppy, we would hold him up and go, "Plesiosaur, plesiosaur," because my little mini dachshund looks like a plesiosaur, all little legs. Um,
Wow.
but yeah, no, I think Loch Ness monster is a plesiosaur, absolutely. Um, I think that we have this concept that once it's written, it's forever, or once we've decided it, it's forever, or once we've created it, it's forever. I had a friend who was making a lot of homophobic slurs. And they happened to come from a culture or a space that was not a culture, but a space that was very homophobic. And they weren't, I think, really homophobic, but they were making a lot of, and what they were saying was all the time, they were saying, that's so gay. Now, I have been talking to one of their cousins who hadn't come out to anybody because he was so afraid because of the way things were being handled and, how his cousin was constantly saying that. And we had this conversation. And this is my sibling's brother, and my sibling and her brother and her whole family are very dark, very black, and they're also indigenous, but they don't go so much with indigenous community. They go more with black community. They grew up in East LA, and I'm having this conversation with him, and he's like, I'm like, can you understand how this is a slur? And how it's basically the same way of saying, like the N word. And he's like, well, I don't care if you use that word. And I'm like, but I care if I use that word, right? Like, I won't use that word because I was taught that that's a slur. And he's like, well, it just means this and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, he said something. And I said, you realize that all words are made up anyways. And he goes, huh. He said, you can't change what it's meant. You can't change how it affects or something like that. And I said, but everything changes because it's all made up anyways, right? It's all made up anyways. And
And
he
words
goes, oh,
meaning and evolve over time.
yeah,
Like if you look at the original word or the original meaning of the word girl,
yeah,
it didn't mean female child, it meant child.
it did.
All children were girls.
Yeah,
Boy was, I think, specific to like the child of a knave or something. But there was actually a third word for a child, which was brat.
which most
So
are.
I saw this TikTok and it was I don't know who did the original, but basically turning around and saying there's three genders. Basically, are you a girl, are you a boy, or are you poor? Because that's essentially what it meant.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, like the word queer. Um, Queer is an acceptable term in terms of describing the queer community, the LGBT as a whole, but you still do have to be very, very wary because there are people like my mother who grew up in like the 80s, 90s, where it was actually used and weaponized against her, and she was traumatized by it. So she does not identify with that word at all. But for like my generation, for the 95% of the community, we reclaim it and we speak about it as this is us, this is who we are, and it's better than saying LGBTQIA plus
yeah,
all the time. But the original word of queer or context in like the early 1920s was just a simple reference to the community in the first place.
yeah,
It's only during like the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s that it was weaponized. So yeah, evolution of language again is a little tiny interest of mine, and again I'm doing it across two languages now.
right.
It's really really cool learning like etymology of Cymraeg. And my son is challenging me more and more every day because I'll say to him, can you say, I said to him the other day, can you say thank you to Alice's mum for giving you some gluten-free biscuits to do the biscuit decorating with? Because so rarely can he take part in stuff like that because of his gluten intolerances. And in pure Welsh, he said, thank you so much for the gluten-free biscuits. The only thing he didn't say in Cymraeg was gluten-free.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I understood it, but the shock on my face was like, oh my God.
That's amazing. That I love reclamation of language to me is one of the most powerful things. That's one of the most beautiful things because it's all made up. Yet when we have indigenous languages, when we have traditional languages, those languages are made up for specific, like gloss, right? For specific things, right? They're made up to describe a specific situation or a specific thing that you can't describe in a translation, that you can't translate it out. You can't translate out the feeling of the longing for the whales that could have been, right? You can't translate that out, right? So
Translation for it, no.
Right. And
Absolutely
I
nonsense.
love
Yeah.
that reclamation. I have the same issue with I have a teenage boy. Of course, I've got a couple of them, and one of them is LGBTQ, and him and his friends were using no homo, and I'm like, you need to stop, like, and he's like, but, and I'm like, no, 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 you don't understand. And I was like, your uncle like got like harmed, like that was something that was slurred at him and he was harmed with that phrase. They don't. And I love the fact that we're reclaiming and we're taking back, and so many different words that we're taking back, and so many different ways that we're like, doubling down on, you can't use that against me, you can't
Yeah,
use who I am against me.
it's also contextual as well. So, for instance, saying that's so gay, it used to be like a way of saying something was bad, which is why it became a slur because gay is supposed to be a name for a category of sexuality, and you're equating badness with that. But it's going through a bit of a revival again at the moment, but not necessarily through like the 90s that's so gay. It's like I've got a badge that I wear on my camp shirt that says "Sounds gay, I'm in."
Yeah, I think I actually have one of those. Actually, I think on my hat I have something that says that.
Like it's saying it's a good thing, which is different.
No, that's not what it says. It says, "Welcome to the gay side. We have rainbows."
Yeah, exactly. So using it in those kind of contexts, absolutely fine.
Yeah.
But using it as "that's so gay," which is like a real '90s kind of like. I remember listening to that growing up as when I was a kid. But yeah, sounds gay. I'm in. I'm totally for that.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, like with my son, I think that that's how him and his friends are trying to reframe it and restructure it and change it. But I think that they also had to hear and understand that the fight that comes before it, right? Why?
Have to understand historical context. And this is actually an argument I've had recently with my friend who is I'm not entirely sure my friend anymore. Terry,
Oh, yeah.
my yeah. So I've had a falling out with him. Mostly because the biggest point of that is because he refused to stop using the term Red Indian.
Oh,
So despite me explaining it, but he then pretty much personally attacked me by saying, "Why can't you just give me a simple answer?" And I'm like, "Because you don't ask simple questions. How am I supposed to give you the reason why something is considered bad without giving you the historical context to it?
yeah.
If you don't want the history, don't ask for it. Just accept what I'm saying is true."
Yeah. That's real. If you don't want it to know all the facts of it, then just understand it.
Also, I'm autistic. You know I'm autistic. You know that I collect knowledge. You know that I'm going to go on an info dump about something that I know a lot about. So why are you telling me that that's a flaw and that's a fault when you're my damn friend, or supposedly my damn friend?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, well, and you know me, I've got to explain everything to the ninth. Like it's got to be to the little dot, right? Like my feelings, my thought processes, and sometimes I recognize that sometimes that's hard for people to deal with. Sure. And if you ask me to not get so intense or something like that, I'm definitely down. But don't ask me questions and then not expect me to explain it for 3 days.
Exactly. That's exactly it. I mean,
That conversation we had yesterday, I really meant this, and I
yeah,
thought of this. Like,
absolutely. And sometimes, it might take you a while to begin answering the question because you have to pull the train of thought that is the start of that conversation, not just a my brain was not expecting this conversation. It's throwing all these bits of information at me. Give me a second while I find the right thread to start.
well, and I have to phrase it right too. I want to make sure that I'm saying it to you in a way that you can understand and that I'm clear, and that like I'm not being shitty about, or I'm not making you feel bad about, or like there's 100 different things that I have to come up with before I can get to the point where I can tell you the absolute.
Again, this is something I find that not everybody else does. Is you think about the audience of who is listening, and you word it. If I were to go into a room full of preschoolers and start talking about Homo sapien and sexual dimorphism without explaining any of it,
Right.
they're not going to understand. You have
Right.
to put it in language that they understand. And that's another process.
That's so real too, because like, I need to, I spent like the early part of my God, like the late teens, early 20s. I spent a lot of time then the early part of raising my children. You need to make sure that you talk in an educated voice. You need to make sure that you talk with educated language. You need to make sure that when you talk to people, they understand you as an educated person because the language that you use is going to predict how they treat you and how they see you, right? And it wasn't until I was in my late 30s that I realized just how much racism is inherent in deciding that somebody is uneducated based on the way that they speak, right? I had always grown up around a lot of people of many different nationalities and cultures. And they had all been people who spoke very educated. Like they had all been people who were really putting in the effort to, not putting in the, but like they were questioners. They were always questioners, right? And so they had always done a lot of reading and a lot of things like that because that was just everybody around me. And so it didn't occur to me until it was explained to me that so many people look at different groups of people as having different language levels because of education, right? And so it wasn't until my late 30s that I saw the racism within expecting people to speak in a certain way or expecting people to communicate in a certain way. And I started changing and adjusting. And so I spent the vast majority of my life with an extremely broad vocabulary using extremely big words. And I mean, the, I, I can tell you the meaning of words that most people are like confused by how to even pronounce, right? And I spent a lot of my time studying that. And vocabulary and language is such a huge important thing to me that I have to spend a lot of my time. I spent a couple of years initially, and then I concentrate on it constantly to not use large language, to not try and sound like I'm trying to talk down to somebody or not try and use 10-letter word or $10 words, because those are the words that are automatically in my thought process, right? Like verbose is a word that is automatically in my thought process in this
Well,
conversation. But
those are astute. Those were the ones that I grew up. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
But I mean, I come from Cymru, and the amount of Cymraeg speakers and those with heavy Cymraeg accents who have actually actively changed their accents because they've either worked with a lot of English people or work in England, because there is a very xenophobic thought process that if you are from Wales, you're stupid. Um, the amount of people, you wouldn't believe how many people do actually change their accents so they don't get treated as if they're not intelligent. And this is a very old thing. It goes back to like King Henry VIII when he started putting in English schoolmasters into Welsh schools, because he's the one that basically dictated that the Welsh language is what was making Wales fail. Essentially, it didn't matter that Wales is like underfunded and has been, for a long, long time. Didn't matter that we've had to live on less and all those things. It's like it's even, and it still goes on to now. I sent you, I think, a screenshot of the what Boris Johnson said through the COVID inquiry, saying that the reason that there was a higher rate of COVID within Cymru was because we're we have high obesity and because we sing. And I made a joke to you, and I said, "Man, I says couldn't be because because we were underfunded and all that. Must be because the fat lady's singing."
yes, I remember that one. I remember that one. Well, and I mean, I think it's something that we see really everywhere. It's just different groups of people. Like we see it within Scandinavian countries against the Sami people, right? And we see it in in countries here in the northern American continent, right? We see a lot of different, you know, uh, we see decisions based on language. We see decisions based on skin color. We see decisions based on where people are living as being what is wrong, it not as the governmental structure and not as what is going on with the government, but as well as it's just these people, this group, this way, and so I think that that's one of those things that as we're looking at it all, we have to kind of shift and kind of change.
History that we know of. I mean, if you look at, obviously everybody, most people on your platform will understand, how the indigenous people of Turtle Island were referred to as savages and all that kind of stuff. Well, that happened here in the island of Britain with the Romans. We were described as barbarians and savages and all these things. It's the whole, they're different, they do things different, therefore they're not civilized.
Yeah.
And it's just bullshit.
Well, and all of those terms that are used here to discriminate and all of those things that are used here to talk nastily about different groups here are all terms that were used somewhere else to talk nastily about other groups first. Barbarians is a Roman term that comes from their interactions with the Gauls, because they decided that the Gauls language sound like ba 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 ba, right? Like we see that tribes is something that has been used for 2,000-3,000 years, and as the Romans decided that they were no longer tribes, as the Italians decided that they were no longer tribal, they decided to make tribe be a bad thing, right? And we see that these discriminations translate down.
Became a homogenized group from like the Roman and Greek descriptions, even though we've never been homogenized because we did live in tribes. Even within like Cymru, we had like 13, 14 different tribes. We had so many more across, the island of Britain. And we were distinctively different to the thank you. Were distinctively different to like the continental Celts, which the Gauls were part of that kind of tribal concept there. Yeah. So, it's the beginning of homogenization, and one of the reasons they described us as savages and barbarians is because there was a continental Celtic group that did, I think, sack Greece and like invaded and pretty much killed a buttload of people, and they were indiscriminate in the way that they did that. It wasn't the people of Britain that did it.
Right. Right. And I think that's real. I think that's real. I like when people use tribalism these days, I like to go, oh, okay, so you mean based on family lines? Because they use tribalism. And I see tribal used a lot, especially in here. I see tribal used a lot to denote specific groups of people instead of what tribal actually denotes, right? And so, yeah, responding to a comment in the chat. I do have to go, guys. It is like it's too much. So I will try and be back within the next couple of days. I am trying to, like, I've been better the last day or so, somewhat, which is why I was able to make it in today. But I will try and be back. I am going to set my account back to private, so you guys will be able to see if you're already following me. But anybody who you recommend to follow me, I'm going to have to add. So just so you know, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I just want you to know. If it takes time. And as we were just talking, I over explain everything, right? So I will have it on private for a couple of days until I think that maybe it stopped in the mass reporting. And I will try and come back as I'm getting a little bit better and do a few more lives. I might have to adjust how I'm doing my lives just so that it's not an upright thing. So we might see some changes with that. And then I am working on a couple of videos. Just because it's been a few days. So everybody, oh yeah, I'll absolutely send out invites for the live. I want to remind everybody though, before I leave, and it's a reminder I've needed myself the last few days, because when I can't function, it makes me feel very worthless. We are all worthy just being here. All we have to do is breathe. And we are all nurturing and communal, and this depression and this anxiety that we feel is really about the fact that we live in a sick society. It's definitely a healthy response to an unhealthy system. So if you're struggling with your value and you're struggling with your worth today, I want to remind you that we are all worthy, just by breathing and just by being here. Even if all you can do is lay on your couch. Even if all you can do is lay on your couch for the last week, you are still worthy, and you are still needed, and you are still loved, and you're still necessary. And I want to remind you all to give yourself grace and to take care of yourselves. I promise you that I'm doing everything within my power to give myself grace and to take care of myself. I know it's a struggle. I feel that struggle. I'm working very hard on it myself. And I just want to remind you that you deserve that you deserve to be loved, and you deserve to give yourself grace. And I will try and be back within the next couple of days when my body is maybe functioning a little bit better. I'm not sure it will be long term, but I'll try and come in and do at least an hour or so. Everybody, please take care. Sleepy, thank you so much for coming up, and I'll talk to you soon. And give Bear so much love for me. And y'all take care and have a great time. And if I do not see you again before Yule, though I do plan on coming back in before Yule, may your longest night, may the time of struggle be filled with love and be filled with community to get you through the darkest hours so that we can get better and we can move forward. Take care, everybody. Much love. Bye. Oh, bye, YouTube. Take care. So much love. I know I'm coming. I'm coming. I'm working on it.